Hello everyone, welcome once again. In this session, we'll talk about how to map the process through various ways. You would have gone through one of the sessions where in the defined phase when we talked about how to map a process, what is process mapping in the defined phase. But we talked about mapping a process at a high level, and we discussed SIPOC as one of the process mapping methods. SIPOC helps us to map a process on 5 elements: supplier, input, process, output and customer, while there are various other process mapping method that helps us to detail out the entire process mapping method. So we are going to talk about various type of process mapping method that will help us to identify where are the bottlenecks, where are the issues, how can we work on those issues, how can we identify some of those issues, and where and what are those steps which is taking most of the time. So in order to understand the entire process in a very detailed manner, we are going to talk and discuss about these process mapping methods. So if you can see my screen, we'll again do a small recap of what is process mapping in this measure phase also. So in defined phase, we do a high level process mapping, we understand at a high level, while in the measure phase we understand the process mapping at a very detailed manner. So we do a detailed process mapping in the measure phase, as idea is to understand the current state of the process. So to do a small recap, process mapping is used to document, analyze the processes that you can see on my screen. And there are 2 types of process mapping method is what we are going to study in this session here. We'll first talk about the top-down charts, which is to document a process and its related sub-process. And the second process mapping method which will study is functional deployment process map, or flow charts, also called as a Swimlane diagram, which provides more detail by documenting the process, sub-process, the sequence of individual steps and decisions, and who is responsible for these process steps. And the third type of process mapping, which is also part of functional deployment, is also called as another type of process mapping method is called as the value stream map. Value stream map is one of the most used, widely most effective process mapping method. We'll talk about process mapping, value stream mapping in detail in the coming session. So if you can see my screen, we are talking about the process mapping symbols. However, we have discussed it, but we are doing a small recap once again. So these are some of the process mapping symbols that we use while we are designing a typical flow chart. We have a terminal which tells you when does a process start and when does it end. So we write start and end in these boxes. Then we have a activity box, which is a square box, rectangle in fact. Then you have a decision making box, which is represented by a diamond box also it is called. So whenever decision is made, it can be in terms of do you have the data. So do you have the data is written in the decision box, and then it can be either yes or no. There is never nothing called as maybe. We talk about extremes here, yes or no. If it is yes, other process follows. If you do not have data, no, the other process follows. So we don't talk about maybe or any situation. That's very important part about process mapping. Then we have a box which is used to denote the sub process. Then if you are doing any documentation at a particular step, you use another box here. Then if there is a step where we are using as a database, then we use this shape for the databases. And for any specific input and output, we use this particular box here. And then at the end, the connector. If the process is moving from one page to another page, we are using this circle as a connector, and we write in this connector page 1 moving to page 2. So that's how we use this connector as page 1, page 2 and page 3 as a connector to ensure that process is continuing from one page to another. So this is a little detail about different symbols that we use in process mapping. Now we have discussed about process mapping levels in defined phase when we were understanding the process mapping, and there we talked about 3 levels of process mapping in general. Level 1, which was about at an organizational level, 6 to 7 step. Level 2 was more of a functional process mapping level, and level 3 was a transactional process 3 level. And we talked about an example of applying for a loan, and using that example we talked about level 1, 2 and 3 of the process mapping methods. Now in this process mapping level that you see here on the screen, we are talking about detailed process mapping, as we have to write every single step, minute step about a process that is happening, so that we can understand what exactly is happening in the as is process. so that we can identify any specific baseline, any specific issue, any bottleneck, and a process is getting slow, sometime a process creating defects. So all these issues can only come out when we can map the process at a very detailed level. Process can be very manual, or productivity is less. So all these things we need to understand while we map the process at a very detailed level. So just like we had the level 1, 2 and 3, similarly we have levels, but now you will see there are more detailed level. So the level 0 that you see here, it shows a business entity or division. It's at the top level sitting in. At the business level, at the organization level, we have a level 0 where you will not have the process itself, you will have just single thing written. For example, the process is about hiring, or let's say it's about the loan application process. So at a business level, it would be written as applying for loan, a loan application. That's it, and that's at the business 0 level or level 0 level. You have this process written there. Then you have level 1, which shows you high level core activities. When you click on loan application, you will have different kinds of loan: personal loan, home loan, car loan. So at level 1 level, you have the little further detail out activity, the way we discussed. You'll have when you click on a loan application, you will see home loan, personal loan, car loan. See, 3 different type of loan application. That's a level 1 level. It's little below the business entity, but it's still not detailed one. Then you have level 2, which shows the title of the processes and the sub process. So in level 1 you had a personal loan, level 0 you had loan. When you click on personal loan in level 1, it takes you down to another level. When personal loan, it will ask you what is the purpose of applying for a loan: marriage, education, home renovation, any other usage. So you click on any of them, then you go to the next level, which is level 3, where you write the specific process of applying for a personal loan. And then level 4 will be a detailed process of how to apply for a personal loan, and level 5 will be at a transactional level, that you click on a particular field, write your detail, select which city and state you are from. So that's at the level 5, at the form level, when you're filling the form for applying loans. That is at the lowest level of applying for a loan. While at the top level, what do we have? Loan application, or applying for loans. So that's at the top level. So that is how we detail out the processes. And this is very important to understand, because in the organization, when we are trying to automate process or trying to use methodologies like robotics process automation, we need to detail out process at these levels: level 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sometimes can go up to level 6 also. It depends on how complex the process is. So at different levels, we identify different opportunities: how manual a process is, if there are errors happening, if productivity is, if there are defects are there, if the cost is too much, if the process is very complex, if you are hearing the issues like teams are not able to work together. So all these issues we need to understand by mapping out process at different level: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and can go beyond 6, 7 also, depending on how complex or how big the organization is, or if the process is spread across various verticals domains, then the process can go to even further levels also. Moving to the next slide, you will see in this slide you will see 2 types of process map. We are looking at the activity process map, then we are looking at the deployment process map. Activity process map is very similar to a flow chart that you would have seen in the earlier days, or in your in previous sessions or some other courses. You would have said flow chart is where you use those boxes that we just talked about and introduced, those rhombus, rectangle, connector, decision making box, and square and rectangle. So these boxes that we are using it to flow. We are using it to chart the flow of the information which is in a process. The process starts from a point which is used by terminal, and from there it goes next step. Then we are charting the entire flow of the process, and with different boxes trying to show where a decision is taken, and how complex this entire process is, how many decision boxes are there. It has a start point. It can have multiple endings also. For example, a multiple ending can be so there can be multiple endings in a process. For example, when we apply for a loan, one of the endings is you get a rejection letter, which is like when loan gets rejected, you get rejection letter, rejection email, the loan is not approved, thank you for applying. Another ending can be your loan has been approved, this is a disbursement letter. So you see there are two endings that we can expect from a process. So a flow chart will help us understand what is the start of the process, what are different endings of the process, and how the process is happening in between, and what are different steps, what are different documents we are using, different inputs we are using, and different decisions that are happening in a process. That's a flow chart that you see on the screen, also called as activity map. The second chart that you are seeing here, it's called as the deployment process map. It is called deployment process map. It is also called swim lane diagram as well. Here when I say swim lane, just like in swimming, if you would have seen any Olympic swimming game, you would have seen that there are different lanes in which a swimmer is running. They cannot go from one lane to another. They swim in their own lanes. There's straight lanes, rectangle lanes, and they are swimming in their own lane. So similarly, we represent different functions in an organization, different teams in an organization as one lane, and we try to so for example, when we apply for a loan, so there is a team called as processor job is to process your application for loan. Another team is called as underwriter will understand the eligibility of yours. Have you applied for a loan and all? Do you have the credit worthiness? Have you been paying your loans on time or not? And if this person is not able to decide, then it goes to senior underwriter, and then finally we have a processor who will approve, who will actually process the letter and everything, your loan is disbursed and so on. So you see there are 3-4 people who are working together to get the loan disbursed. So each person, each function for that matter, or each team, or each business, we call them as a lane. They do certain steps in an overall process. So all the process step that a particular process is doing or a team is doing, they are happening in one process, then another team is doing. So we are understanding in a process how this process is taking place among all the business functions that we see in the swim lane diagram here. And it does not happen like that one team will finish the job, then second team will finish the job. So it doesn't happen like that. It also happens like that one step takes place in one team, then goes to the next team in next lane, then goes to the next lane, might come back to another again first lane. So that's how it can work. So that's how swim lane represents the flow of the information happening in a process. It is a better way of understanding the process, because unlike the activity process map, we cannot see who is doing what. So we will not know if someone is taking a lot of time in a process. We will not know, because we don't have names or teams in the activity process map. While in the swim lane or a deployment flow chart, we can actually see who is doing what, how much time they are taking. We can calculate all that information. So this will give us a better view of the entire process happening, and basis that we can generate a lot of insights. It can help us to understand the current state of the process, and then it can help us to design the future state of the process, how a process should be, the key players in a process, the bottleneck in the process. All this information can be very well understood by the swim lane or deployment process map. So in the next session, we'll talk more about the swim lane process map, and then we'll also talk about the value stream map in the next session. Thank you for watching. This is Shivendra Sharma.